Shalom, shalom. In today's Legends of the Zohar, we will be discussing the third chamber of defilement. The third chamber is dark and somber, for there is no light in it whatsoever. It is darker than the first chambers. It is called Duma, corresponding to the name of the evil inclination foe. There are 4 openings to this chamber, one on this side, another on that side, and so on. There is a chief in charge of the first opening, sustained by the anger in the world. And when judgment is upon the world, this chief that dwells in the gate takes weapons and puts them at the entrance to the synagogue. He is called Saka Fortaya, and is the stumbling of the world. Of this it is written, the way of the wicked is like darkness. They know not at what they stumble. Mishalai 4:19. When he is in power, and there is judgment upon the world, he goes to see who walks alone in a public place. And if he sees him, he may cause him harm and weaken his fortune. On the second opening, there is another chief, ready to receive the verdicts, namely, the notes upon which the verdicts are written. This is Sangadael, under whom there are complainants and accusers in power, ready to receive these verdicts. This chief stands at the second opening. When he receives the verdict from the chieftain Malkael of the first opening of the third chamber of holiness, he stands at this opening, then descends into the dark gates below, to the one called grave, namely to the second chamber of defilement, and to the one called pit, which is the first chamber of defilement, that are below. There are several thousands and tens of thousands of officers whose duty it is to execute judgment in the world. Justice is concluded by verdict. A chief named Angarion is over the third opening. He is in charge over all illness and pains, trembling, and the fire within the bones, namely, which do not cause death, drawn from the judgments of the left. Many thousands and tens of thousands of officers come out from him and charge together with him over all the illnesses and pains, as we learned. In the fourth opening, there is a spirit born when the moon was in setting. He is called Askara, in charge over the death of children. He comes before children, laughs with them until eventually he kills them. He is seen before them in the guise of a woman, like the child's mother, suckles them, laughs at them, grabs them, and kills them. In the middle of this chamber stands a spirit called Agirisum, in charge over those who died when they were between 13 and 20 years of age. Their death comes by the hand of that chief, as we've explained, by his joining the serpent we mentioned, which abides by him and follows him. For that reason, the angel of death is called very good, as it is written, and behold, it was very good, Bereshit 1:31, which we explain to be the angel of death. From this place come and spread out 2 spirits called wrath and fury, appointed over all those who are rebuked by someone who is occupied in the Torah, namely, that he who studies the Torah scolds them for not walking the path of truth. They trust him, his goodness, and are unaffected by that. Also, those who laugh and mock at the words of the Torah and of the words of the sages. From wrath and fury come out some thousands and tens of thousands. They all come out and hover above the people who study the Torah, or are occupied in the precepts, and walk in their ways, to make them sad instead of rejoicing in the Torah and the precepts they are occupied with. Moses was afraid of these 2 when Israel sinned by the making of the calf. And he descended from the mountain, as it is written, for I was afraid of the wrath and fury. Devarim 9:19. Under these, wrath and fury, there is a spirit appointed over the evil-tongued. For when men start to slander, the evil unholy spirit above, called Saksika, is bestirred, dwells upon the stirring of the evil tongue that men let loose, and causes, by that arousal of the evil tongue, death, sword, and killing in the world. Woe to those who awaken this evil side and do not guard their mouth and tongue, nor care for this. They do not know that awakening above depends upon an awakening below, either good or bad. Come and see. When the evil tongue is awakened below, a slant serpent above raises its scales to stand upright, and stirs from head to toe. The scales are all those who transgress the law and justice outside. They bestir to grab that evil word, the man said, and awaken the piercing serpent, Yeshayahu 27:1, the male serpent. Then the whole evil body of that serpent bestirs, from head to toe, to damage all the chambers of which we talked. Then all the scales on the skin come off, and the skin is shed and comes down. The body, without skin and scales, comes up aroused to be an accuser above. Come and see. Though there is a set time for all the serpents in the world to shed their skin, namely every 7 years, nevertheless, they shed it only when the evil tongue is stirred below. Then the evil serpent above is aroused, and sheds its skin and scales. This goes up, and that goes down, meaning that the body goes up against Binah, and the skin and scales come off it and go down. This sloughing of skin and scales is difficult for the serpent, because it is separated from its spouse. Namely, the skin and scales are the aspect of Malkuth of the serpent, the spouse of the serpent. Why would it do this, to be separated from its Malkuth? Because if all were united, namely with Malkuth, the skin and scales, which are the aspect of fierce judgment, the world would not have been able to bear it. It is therefore the correction of the world. With all this is caused by the arousal of the evil tongue below. This means that though it is the correction of the world, it is not done of its own, but caused by the sin of slander. When the serpents below shed their skin, each one raises its voice, and arouses several serpents in the place called Pit, where there are snakes. All of them gossip about the world, to arouse the great serpent to gossip about the world. All this is caused by the awakening of the evil tongue, which happens below. In the same manner, whoever studies Torah, many angels called the Holy Tongue, are united and arouse that place called the Holy Tongue, namely, the tongue that comes from holiness above, which is the secret of the central column, which is the tip, tongue, of the scales, that joins together right and left, so that holiness will be revealed in them. Many sanctifications and holy beings are bestirred on all sides. Happy is the portion of the righteous, who cause sanctifications to be stirred above and below, the sanctification above in Bina, and the sanctification below in Malkuth. Of this it is written, You shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and you shall be holy, by Askara 11:44. You shall sanctify yourselves refers to the first water, called supernal water, namely, the sanctification above in Bina. And you shall be holy refers to the last water, finger bowl water, namely, the sanctification below, which is Malkuth. The food comes between the first and last water. Therefore, the food is not in the last water, Malkuth, but in the first water, Bina, because the first water comes from above, from Bina, where food abides, as all mochin are from Bina. But it is not in the last water, which is Malkuth receiving from Bina, which has nothing on her own. This secret was handed to the high holy men. Happy is their portion in this world and in the world to come. With that being said, we have learned the mysteries of the third chamber of defilement. Shalom Selah.